Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about spiritual warfare. Basically, spiritualism and warfare and why they go hand in hand. Throughout history, the one thing that has played apparent since the Dead Sea Scrolls is the warfare between two warring factions. Let's look over the last few centuries, for an example, the last couple of thousand years. In Zoroastrianism, you have Ahura Mazda, the mad god, versus that of Ahriman, the black god. In Christianity, you have God versus Satan. In the Pig Latin days, cuneiform, we see Michael versus Lucifer. Go back to Sanskrit, and we have Michael versus Belial. Go into the Necronomicon, and you have, surprise, surprise, Marduk versus Tiamat, the dragon of chaos. So, what do all these things have in common? There's spiritualism, and there's warfare mixed in. Now, the difference between all of these and that of the Dead Sea Scrolls is the Dead Sea Scrolls describes in the Scroll of Amrin, it describes a physical affliction. Think of it this way. Belial, leader of the sons and daughters of darkness, all those who oppose the established order, versus Michael, the leader of the sons and daughters of light, light versus darkness, good versus evil, heaven versus hell. All of these things play a part. If you go to a church, they're going to teach you about spiritual warfare and how the devil tries to tempt you. They will teach you to resist at all cost. Otherwise, you'll burn in the lake of fire. But those who have practiced the left-hand path knows a lot different. We know that it comes on all kinds of levels. You have physical, meaning solitary. A lot of times you're going to find yourself outnumbered, probably 10 to 1, at least. And that's if you're lucky. On other cases, you're probably going to find an order, a temple, or even, say for an example, a coven. Numbers and strength, as the Lycans would call it, a pact. Think about that for just a minute. Lycanthropes ran in packs. Why? Why did dogs run in packs? Protection. Better chances of catching a prey. But what happens if you're a Satanist, a necromancer, for an example, a devil worshiper? People are going to avoid you like the plague. You're probably going to be an outcast. You see, these are the types of instances that would define the physical nature of a practitioner within a spiritual but also physical warfare. You see, it has nothing to do with a devil, an all-encompassing evil. No. It's the title alone that will get you attacked. You look at what is known as a mage, a sage, a witch, a warlock, a bruja, a brujo, a Polero versus a Marimberos. Think about all this stuff. A Bokor versus a Membo or Hangan within Voodooism. The African Caribbean traditions versus the European traditions. There's always that one notion, that one title that people fear, assume is the evil, the devil, a demon. That one title, no matter what tradition, is your warfare. That's your warfare that you're going to go through. It's a test, it's a trial, which is why knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Anton Szandor LaVey stated it quite frankly and clearly. Knowledge is power. True knowledge is undefiled wisdom. I know from personal experience with those that I've gone up against that have been Christian, they've never come up against anyone like me because I know how they work. I've learned from my enemies. More so, I've learned their history. I've learned history and mythology. Knowledge is power, and true power is undefiled wisdom. That's the Satanic Creed, especially that of the COS, the Church of Satan. Anton Szandor LaVey was a wise man. So, what can you do being a practitioner? How do you deal with spiritualism? But more so, how do you approach potential threats? You can always go by the 9 noble virtues of pagan and Wiccan traditions, or you can live like a Satanist, for an example, the 2 highest laws: self preservation above all else, self gratification, meaning anything that brings you as the individual gratification is all good as long as you do not violate that highest law, self preservation. You see, a Satanist wouldn't do anything that would violate that standard. Not one damn thing. But what if you were a necromancer? Why would you be hated? Why would you be feared? Is it because you commune with the dead? You hang out in cemeteries? You do blood rites? You work and study death? Say the Tibetan Book of the Dead or the Egyptian Book of the Dead? Studying death on a medical perspective. You look at medical right now. The medical world has since the 1940s, have had a branch known as thanatology. It is the study of the soul, the death, the transition between life and death, the process of dying, just like the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which has been around for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years. And here we are in 1949, the 1940s, and now you have this new branch going into play where you have to have a license to practice. And it's called thanatology. And then look, what's on the other hand? Necrology, the notification process. Today we call it the obituaries. But hey, who's keeping track, right? It's all about you, right? It's all about them. Who's right, who's wrong? Man who does not learn from history is doomed to repeat it, right? Think about that. Think about it for just a moment. If you do not learn from history, then you're most likely going to repeat it time and time again. You look at the freedom of religion. How many times has your freedom of religion been violated? How many times has it been rewritten, redefined since the 17th century? And that's just right here in the United States. But how can you as a practitioner learn? How can you evolve? How can you stay on top of the proverbial pecking order? Well, I'm going to tell you. In fact, I'm going to show you. One thing I've learned over 31 years of practicing spiritualism and practices of various different sorts throughout 31 years is that it closely relates one another. It's both spiritual and it's both physical. Warfare is always going to be a part of spiritualism, no matter what tradition. A witch versus a warlock, a hungan or a mambo versus a bokor, either the male or female version of that, because there's another name for a female bokor. Okay? The darak, the dark oak, versus the druid, meaning white oak. Huh. The Satanist to the church. Think about that. Right there, just numerous different traditions right there that I just named off. The Polero versus the Marimberos, the African Caribbean traditions, such as Quimbanda, Umbanda, Santeria, Palo, either Monte or Mayumbi, Brujeria. Think about it. In fact, I want you to go out and study this stuff so that you can learn. But what can you learn? How can you go about doing this as a spiritualist, but also as a warrior? You see, in my book, I view things from a warrior's perspective. I view it because I've known nothing but warfare, conflict throughout my life. From living in the Bible Belt to living up north, I've had to fight for everything because I've always been judged, hated, and yes, even feared. So it's nothing new to me. Everybody's path is their own. That's the first thing I want you to learn. Your path is your own. It does not mean that everybody is going to be attacked, hated, feared, judged, because not everybody likes to, or I should say, feels comfortable being out in the open. Those who do, you look at all the drama that goes in their lives, how people fear them, they hate them, they attack them, they'll post absurdity type links to, underneath their posts. They'll gang bang them within a pouncing technique, treating everything as a joke. This is how you know you're doing your job correctly. You're sharing truth, and they can't handle that. You see, this is where the conflict comes in. They either accept it or they don't. You can't make up their mind for them. You can only put that knowledge out there. So, over the last 25 years, about the last 20 to 25 years, I followed The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Very, very good book. Very good book. Teaches you how to be observant in a lot of different areas. From using your enemies against themselves, turning spies for you. Basically, people would refer to that as blackmail, basically, but it works. Or you can give them false information, just enough that you give them that little noose, that freedom to maneuver, and then they hang themselves. I've always said two things. Number one, doing nothing, you win. Letting your enemies talk smack about you, you win. Why? Why? I'll tell you. Number one, your enemy is going to defeat himself because they're going to see through the lies that they're telling. So you win. Second of all, by doing nothing, they show the world exactly who they are and what they're about. So again, you win. So in reality, you don't have to sit there and throw death curses or hexes at every single opponent. You don't. Save them, save your energy in those curses for those who truly deserve it. You don't have to sit there and curse every living thing that says no to you or gets in your way. It's just a pointless waste of time. That's why I always say, save your curses and your hexes for those who deserve it. Let your opponents defeat themselves and show the world who they truly are. So the art of war plays a huge factor in what you do and how you present every single situation. Some of the other things that I like from a personal view is as a warrior, you're not just a spiritual warrior, you're a physical warrior. You're defending your faith, your religion, your philosophy. You're going out and you're seeking that knowledge. Bushido, very good. Personally, I love the Asian stuff, the Asian martial arts, from the way of the hand, the fist and foot, to Taekwondo, to Bushido, to Ninjutsu. Okay, Brazilian Ninjutsu, even. Okay, this stuff is awesome. Okay, this gives you a philosophy that you as an individual can live by. Shinto is not only a physical thing, but it is also a spiritual. It teaches you how to approach a spirit or a god. It shows you a way of life within a spiritualism. And when you deal with things like the legal system, or you deal with organizations such as businesses, or you deal with people in general, like the general public, the Stoic way of life. Okay? This book here, I recommend it hands down. It deals with everybody throughout history who's been a philosopher of one form or another. And it's very good. I love it. Okay? One of the first books on philosophy that I've ever picked up was this one here, and it's called The Book of Meditation. This book was from Marcus Aurelius. His way of perception, especially from a place of power. He was a politician, a bureaucrat during the Roman times. He was very astute. He played both sides, but he was more of a intermediary. And if you think about it, by learning to play the game, you become the master. You, not me, but you, as the individual. Just by learning the disciplines, the focus, the spiritualism, you're becoming an all rounded practitioner, especially when you learn to put philosophy in play. You see, Sun Tzu, a lot of people would view the art of war as a battleground, how to employ yourself and your troops, your coven, to attack somebody else. How many of you have been on social media now for a long time, or even a short time, and seen all this drama, all this chaos? I think I'm being cursed, or somebody's attacking this or person, or I need help to bring back a lover or to separate somebody. You see, this is the art of war. A lot of people view it as a joke. They view it as a game. They think it's just social. And that's what they go by. They view it from a worldly perspective instead of the spiritual. As necromancers, you see, I happen to be a necromancer, but I am also a Satanist, a traditional Satanist. I have made deals and I've made pacts with demons, with the forces of darkness. I have literally associated with spirits, not face to face like you and I are doing right now, but I've literally drawn blood. I've written out pacts. I've written my name in blood. I have literally given blood offerings out of faith, out of tradition. Tradition. That's a whole nother level than demonolatry. Knowing the right demon to call upon and for what situation. Being a necromancer, you're literally becoming death. You are associating with death. You are becoming death. If we go into the German Glick or the Russian Lick, meaning corpse or cadaver, dead, you see how a necromancer can transcend themselves. Working with the ancient gods of death, you'd be surprised what you can achieve. What you as an individual can become. You see, it's more about you, your self evolution, your self mastery. It's an old saying, you have to master yourself before you can master the world. I want you to think about that. And for a root witch, marry me. And you can just say hello if you want. But my point is this, it's about you, no matter what tradition. It's about your study, your knowledge, your wisdom, your growth, your maturity. You see, the more you grow, the more you're going to find that there are things in your life that you don't need. You won't need drama. You won't need chaos. And people are going to see that and they're going to separate. I was talking with a friend of mine, a longtime friend, a while back. It was like maybe a month ago. And he said the reason people don't get in touch with you, the reason they don't join in is because they're afraid of you. Why? Exactly what I asked him. Why are they afraid of me? He simply said because they don't know if you're going to curse them or if you're going to help them. You see, I've made a reputation for myself. I don't deal in bullshit, and I'm not going to take your bullshit because I'm going to speak the truth, no matter if it's a hard truth. Remember the 9 noble virtues I spoke of? That's what I go by. But I also go by a few creeds. Like I said, it comes down to the pacts, the deals, and about you. People know I know my stuff. That's why they fear me. People have got to be insane to argue with a guy like me. But the thing is, the thing you have to remember is that you got to remove the ego. It's not about ego. It's about knowledge. It's about growth. And here's the thing. You may be smart. You may know your shit. But there's always going to be somebody out there that knows more than you. More than you. And I want you to remember that. You can spend your entire life learning. I've been a Satanist for 30 years. 30 years. I became friends with a guy by the name of Alistair Notch when he had his Facebook profile. This guy, within 3 sentences, makes me look like an amateur. And he's been doing it for 35 years. 35 years. And he makes me look like an amateur. Everybody has their strong suits and everybody has their weaknesses. So when I say that spiritualism and warfare go hand in hand, trust me, on one day you could be battling yourself. The next you could be battling an enemy. Or you're just trying to get by in the world, to get your own slice of the proverbial pie. Spiritualism and warfare go hand in hand. And I want you to understand this stuff. Yeah, so do I. I own every single book he owns that he put out. Alistair Notch is one of those guys that you got nothing but respect for. I mean, personally, if you're into Satanism, I would recommend looking up Bococalacus Aureax Magus. Okay, the name of the book is called the the book of the black, or is it the book of the divine black book of Satan? Okay, the divine, what is it? The book of the divine black flame of Satan. There we go. Okay, this guy literally, he's a traditional Satanist. He's now dead. Okay, he died last year, and he literally spells it out and he breaks it down in a state of vampirism, but also satanic nature. Love the guy's work. Okay, he's a traditional Satanist. Another one is called Tentatio Diabolus, and it's 3 books in one. And it's called, the first book is called The Devil's Bible, second book is The Devil's Disciple, and the third book is called The Devil's Coven. Okay. Again, this book here is written by another traditional Satanist, and it's not any of the, and the author's name is Myrmidon Pontifex Magnus, or okay, Maxim Pontifex Maximus Myrmidon Pontifex Magnus. Okay, very good guy. This guy, he brings his own form of Satanism. He's not, these two guys here, they haven't done the Levian bullshit to death like everybody else. It's all unique and all straight to the point. Another one is, if you really like challenges and you like challenging yourself, I would recommend the Order of the Nine Angles. This group goes all the way back to the 18th century, most likely to the Hellfire Club. And there's even rumors that they go back to the 17th century, but I have yet to find proof of that. Okay. Patricia and Lionel Fanthorpe wrote a book as well. It was called Satan's Minions. Okay. Or no, that was somebody else actually. That was Corvus something. It was Demonolatry and Witchcraft, I believe it was the name of it. They actually traced Satanism, or at least branches of Satanism, going as far back as the Paleolithic era. And they backed it up with regional sources of archaeology, history, and mythology. Something for you to check out as well. So, but there are other forms of Satanism out there. Okay, you have Luciferianism, like Michael W. Ford, Turksu Zij from the Embassy of Lucifer. Okay, this is theistic or spiritual Satanism. Okay, within a form of Luciferianism. You have a whole bunch of traditions, such as demonolators like S. Connolly. Okay, one of the foremost experts there in demonolatry that I can tell you about. Even Michelle Belanger has written a few books on vampirism and demonolatry herself. She even wrote a dictionary of demonolatry, names of the damned. Let's see, there's also Rosemary Ann Gully, who wrote a book called Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonolatry. She also wrote one on witchcraft, Wicca, and what is it? Something, I can't remember the full thing of it right offhand, but it's there. So there's a lot of sources that you can delve into if you know where to look, especially if you're into Satanism. But like I said, there's a lot of traditions out there. There's a lot of different branches, and a lot of them are going to come into conflict with each other. I can't tell you how many times that atheism and traditional Satanists have clashed. Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that I would recommend for you, would you mind grabbing that book there? This book was actually introduced to me by my teacher. Okay, and yes, I do have a teacher within the necromancy. Okay, this book here, it's Hermetism, Hermetic. Okay, Kabbalah type stuff. All right, let's see if I can get this in here so you can actually see it. Okay, and it's called Annotation into Hermetics. Okay, and since you're new to this stuff, I think this book will help you out a lot because I've been taking a lot of notes from it since I finally got my hands on it after a couple of months. And one of the things that I concur with is thought control, separating you from the spirits. Meditation helps a lot. Okay. And if you're getting into hoodooism, I would recommend voodoo, especially that of Haitian voodoo. Okay. That is the one that I study, especially in the African Caribbean traditions, not just Santeria or Palo Mayombe and Palo Monte. I kind of like Palo Monte more than Palo Mayombe, but Mayombe is more, how should I say this, more about black magic, physical gain, prosperity through black magic by any cost. Whereas Palo Mayombe, or Palo Monte rather, is spiritual in nature, such as healing, working with the spirit, in much the same way as hoodooism. Okay. Think of those two in hoodooism. It's more, using it for both spiritual and physical prosperity. Now, when you get into Haitian voodoo, it's a whole nother system. There's a lot that goes along with it, and you learn a lot, especially if you find a good teacher or you find good material that actually breaks it down for you. It's the same thing with Santeria. I've only found two good sources on Santeria that really stick to the facts. Okay. I would recommend branching out into other African Caribbean traditions and seeing the similarities and the commonalities. Study it, take notes. I would recommend literally keeping three types of journals: one, a ritual journal; two, a dream journal; and three, just a journal in general as a record for you. Okay. This way you can write down your rituals, how you did them, what you experienced, and most importantly, you can keep track of anything that happens. Like, say, you get a vision from the Loa, or you get a vision or a message or some form of symbology or whatever through, say, the Orisha, okay, or even a demon, okay. Now, with that said, I would also recommend creating a grimoire for yourself. Now, you don't have to be into all these other systems. I mostly stick to Satanism and Haitian voodoo and necromancy. It's something that I literally am connected to. Okay, but I've studied everything, all these other types. I've even been initiated into some of them, but it doesn't mean that I practice them. I can incorporate them into my own style. And the thing about hoodooism is that you can literally branch, just Roland, you can literally bring into play just about any system and incorporate it into hoodooism. That's a good thing about hoodooism because it's not just one system, you're working with numerous systems just within one thing. So that's something for you to look into and consider. Okay. So you may find things that work for you, you may find things that don't. That's why you have to study. That's why you got to practice, experiment even. And again, when you start applying things into the world, you will find those conflicts. It may take a while, it may take a few years. Sometimes it's right in a row. I'm talking right up in your face, first thing. Don't let yourself get discouraged. Keep practicing, keep pushing. And if you know what you're talking about and you know what you studied, make sure to place numerous sources. I live my life by two codes, okay? Two main rules. Whatever you preach, always back it up with facts and numerous sources. Okay, you notice the books that I just showed you, the different authors that I recommend. Okay, numerous sources backing up what you're saying. And second of all, always make yourself available to the public because you don't answer to yourself. You may answer to the spirits that you have made those deals and those pacts with, but you also have to answer to the public. Okay. And a lot of JCI have forgotten that aspect. They think they're above it. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. If I have the answer, I will tell you. If not, I'll divert you to somebody who can. All right. And with that said, I'm going to wrap this up. And until next time, have a good night. And until next time.